Hi, I'm Amy.
And I'm Caitlin.
And we're the hosts of Eat Crime, a podcast full of delicious mysteries.
You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Eat Crime and on Facebook, Eat Crime Pod.
Here's a few examples of what you'll hear.
Laurencia and Bambi Bembenak.
Do what now?
And he had secretly taken that copy. I don't know why.
Oh, I know why.
To murder her?
For murder.
And I was like, I can't imagine a mom naming their kids Dante and Dante. We're not in a satanic cult.
Yes, so. I don't know. Let's make that abundantly clear. She seems like provocativity. Is that a word?
She provocativity. Which, I mean, what a businessman.
I know. That's what I'm saying.
Murdered people and got paid for it.
It's both true that there is a Conjuring 2, and Conjuring 2 is true. Valerie, get out of here.
Family and friends love to gather at bowling alleys for nights of wholesome fun. Unfortunately, not all nights end in laughs and great memories. In the two cases we will be discussing today, two young girls are abducted from a bowling alley. These are the cases of Teekah Lewis and Stephanie Crane.
Hey listeners, welcome back to the Abyss Pod. I'm Brittany.
And I'm Hallie.
And we're really excited that you're joining us again. Make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts so you don't miss an episode. Give us that 5-star rating and follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at the Abyss Pod. Also make sure to visit our website, theabysspod.com, to see pictures and show notes and more information on the cases we cover and what we do. It's also a great way to reach out to us, or you can reach out on any of our social media accounts. We would love to hear from you. We want to hear your thoughts on the cases we cover and any suggestions that you have for future cases, so be sure to do that.
So let's jump into the abyss. Teekah Lewis was an Independence Day baby born July 4th, 1996. She had a quiet and shy personality. She loved to eat Starburst and any other candy that she could get her hands on. Teekah was also asthmatic and had to use an inhaler or a ventilator at times. Even though her father had been incarcerated, her mother, Teresa Lewis, was there and was very loving. She kept her at the center of her world. On January 23rd, 1999, Teresa and Teekah, who was 2 years old at the time, went with about a dozen family members to the New Frontier Lanes bowling alley in Tacoma, Washington. While bowling, Teekah decided that she wanted to go play a race car video game in the arcade area of the facility. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and the game was only a few feet from her mother. Unfortunately, it was also about 6 feet from the exit door. It was Teresa's turn to bowl, and she asked a family member to watch Teekah for a moment while she did her turn. They obviously agreed to and went over near Teekah. After Teresa took her turn, she went back to the race car game to see Teekah gone. All eyes had been off of her for just a moment, and it happened so quickly. The police were called immediately, and 2 witnesses came forward with statements that may or may not have been related to Teekah. One witness said they remembered seeing an unidentified car speed out of the parking lot at the bowling alley. It was described as a maroon, late 80s or early 90s styled Pontiac Grand Am, with dark tinted windows, a large spoiler, and possibly 4 doors. Another witness stated that they saw a Caucasian male following a child to one of the exits. The man had shoulder-length brown hair, facial pockmarks, a mustache, a large nose, and was about 30 years old.
Several events happened before Teekah's abduction that had elements that were eerily similar to her disappearance. It has not been confirmed that they were for sure connected, but they definitely had many details that made it pretty likely. In November of 1998, a 4-year-old boy was sexually assaulted in the New Frontier Lanes bowling alley. The perpetrator had brown curly hair and a beard. 2 security guards saw the incident but could not get a good look at the assailant. A few weeks after this, a brown-haired Caucasian man tried to lure a 6-year-old boy from the same bowling alley. He told onlookers that he was the boy's father, but ultimately was thwarted and ran off. On the very same day as Teekah's disappearance, a man with brown curly hair tried to abduct 2 children from a park that was less than a mile from the bowling alley. The children's father saw what was happening and chased the man away. The would-be kidnapper fled in a blue 1995 Pontiac Grand Am. The incident was not reported until 3 days later, when the father learned of Teekah's disappearance and thought that the information might be valuable. No viable suspects came out of any of these incidents, and no arrests were made. They all offer such similar descriptions of the man that it definitely lends credence to thinking that there was a predator lurking the streets, ready to strike. In Teekah's case, they looked at her father, but he was incarcerated at the time, so he was ruled out. The police also investigated local registered sex offenders and the employees of the bowling alley. Each time they came up empty-handed.
There were many false leads that the police had to sort through. Some gave hope to the Lewis family, but also despair. In 2001, a headless body was found in Missouri that was similar to Teekah's description, but it was not a match. It was later confirmed to be the body of a 3-year-old missing girl named Erica Green. In April 2006, a private investigator was hired by the Lewis family, and they informed Teresa that they had found a 12-year-old girl in Dallas, Texas, and believed it was Teekah. The FBI interviewed the girl, and some of the information just didn't really seem to match up. Even though she physically resembled Teekah, it just wasn't right. After completing DNA test, it was confirmed not to be her, another letdown to the family. Only 4 years later, a man approached Teresa at one of the annual vigils she held for Teekah, and he said he had, quote, a vision of Teekah's kidnapper, end quote. Due to the tip, police dug the native garden in Point Defiance Park, but they came up, once again, empty-handed. In 2011, police looked into a violent sex offender in relation to Teekah's case, but they were unable to make any connections. Teresa said that she believes Teekah is still alive. She talks about an incident where the mother of a former boyfriend approached to ask if she could have Teekah because she really wanted a girl. This happened before Teekah's disappearance and seems even more inappropriate when you think back at it. The timing was suspicious, and she never heard from the people again after her abduction. The people currently reside in Florida, and police gave the man a polygraph. Supposedly he failed one and then he passed another. Either way, I just think it's very inappropriate to walk up to somebody and ask if you can have their child.
Yeah, that's a very strange thing to do, and especially suspicious when that child later comes up missing. In 2012, police dug up the yard of John William Black. He admitted to trying to lure children away from a bowling alley back in 2010, and he even admitted to being at the Frontier Lanes bowling alley the same night Teekah disappeared. Teekah's mother actually remembered John talking to her daughter, although he said he had never met either of them. He later recanted the part of his statement about being at the same bowling alley as Teekah, and police found nothing in his yard. Teekah's mother said she had a bad feeling about this man, and that if he had taken Teekah, her mother does not believe she would still be alive. On June 11th, 2012, Teekah's sister, now 14, was walking to a Food Lion grocery store. She passed a gas station, and a man pumping gas started trying to talk to her. He asked her age and made comments that made her uncomfortable. He told her he thought she was cute and that she should come with him. She became very scared at this point and ran home. The man followed her all the way home in his maroon 90s sedan. She told her mother what happened, and the two watched as the car passed by the house several times. The police never found the man, and whether this was related to Teekah's case or not, it's really scary how often this kind of thing happens.
Only last year, in 2019, Teresa submitted her DNA in hopes that Teekah would still be alive and possibly submit her DNA into a database one day. Teresa talked about the night's event saying, quote, "It was the biggest mistake of my life. I've missed 20 birthdays, 21 Christmases, everything. I want my baby home. Somebody took a piece of my heart," end quote. Washington State Police also plan to shed new light on the case by putting Teekah's picture on the side of some semi-trucks that were going to be traveling up and down the western U.S. Recently, in January 2020, an article was published by Q13 Fox that discussed a witness that had seen a man with Teekah the night of her disappearance. He said he was 17 at the time and was at the bowling alley with some friends, and it was a regular place to hang out for him. Here's some audio of the man talking about the incident.
We had gone to that bowling alley plenty of times, and it was kind of an area where people would kind of just come there with their families, and kids can kind of roam. I had to use the restroom, so I went towards where the restrooms were. This rude guy bumped into me with this little girl, and since he was white and Teekah was mixed, or, the little girl was mixed, I just thought it was the father just rushing his daughter to the bathroom. The gentleman with pockmarks was holding this little girl's hand when he bumped into me. And I was thinking, this is the rudest person in the world. No one contacted me. I was easy to find. Maybe what I had to say just wasn't relevant or wasn't useful.
When the witness left that night, he saw police outside and asked what was happening, but they wouldn't disclose any information to him. A couple days later, he found out about the missing girl from the bowling alley. When he saw her photo, it clicked and he knew that he had seen Teekah, and the rude man was not her father. He immediately went to the police and was interviewed. Then nothing happened after that. He just assumed that the police didn't need any more information from him, or that his story wasn't really that relevant.
It was not until 20 years later that a cold case investigator was going through the files on Teekah's case that this witness interview came up again. They noticed the witness had not been contacted and decided to talk to them. This is what Detective Stephen Riopel had to say about this witness' statements, as well as another lead that came up in the investigation.
This witness actually describes a type of encounter with Teekah by this individual. And the description of the individual is not generic. It's specific and it's detailed. I was unfamiliar with this individual with the pockmarked face. So as I was reading through the file and I saw that, I did think it was important right away. About a week after Teekah's disappearance, they were filming a reenactment down at the bowling alley. And someone who was standing there watching the reenactment noticed a person with a pockmarked face that was standing there. He was also watching the reenactment, and the witness who called in thought that he was acting strangely. The individual that we're trying to identify is a white male, 5'11", with a husky build. He is described as having shoulder-length brown, curly or wavy hair with a thick mustache and a heavily pockmarked face. The night of Teekah's disappearance, he was wearing a blue flannel shirt and faded jeans.
I feel like with this new information that they've come out with, that there's going to be a sketch out fairly soon, because this just came out in January. So if they can put together a sketch for this man that they're suspecting, I feel like they'll probably find their culprit in the near future.
Yeah, and if whoever took Teekah is the same person that was trying to abduct kids around the time of her disappearance, I think that that person either lives in that area or frequently goes to that area. So people around there would know them. So hopefully if a sketch does come out, we'll get a lot more information on who that was, and someone will be able to come forward and shed more light on it. The news of these developments in the case were another devastating hit to Teresa, and we're going to play you a statement by her.
That man went in there to find somebody, find a child, and harm that child. And that man took my child, my everything. That was my world right there.
Teekah Lewis was 2 years old at the time of her disappearance, weighing 35 pounds and was 3 feet tall. She is a multiracial female, African American, Native American, and white. She has black hair with natural red highlights and brown eyes. At the time of the disappearance, her hair had a silver streak on the front right side. Teekah has a large birthmark on her left buttock and some patches of light discoloration on her face and rear due to eczema. She has facial dimples and pierced ears, and when she was abducted, she was wearing a green Tweety Bird shirt, white sweatpants, and black and white Air Jordan sneakers. She had her hair pulled back into ponytails, and she was carrying a clear purse with a fish image that had a bunch of starbursts inside. We have her pictures on our website for you to go look at as well. And if you have any more information about the case, please call the Tacoma PD or the FBI, and we'll have both of those numbers on our website for you to go check out.
So that brings us to the end of Teekah Lewis's case. Be sure to check out our website. Like we said, we have pictures up, so see if anything rings a bell and maybe you could help solve this case. The next case that we're going to talk about is about a girl named Stephanie Lynn Crane, and she was born September 28th, 1984. She lived in Challis, Idaho with her family. She had 3 younger sisters and was referred to as a tomboy growing up. Stephanie loved being outdoors. She loved hunting and fishing and rock picking with her father, Ben. Stephanie and her father, who was a miner and a taxidermist, were extremely close and spent a lot of time together. Stephanie also enjoyed riding her bike, spending time with her grandparents, and she was also in a local bowling league. On October 11th, 1993, Stephanie's mother, Sandy, dropped 9-year-old Stephanie off at the local bowling alley with her friends and gave her a little bit of money for snacks. About 6 p.m., Stephanie left the bowling alley near Chalice High School and headed off. She told some friends that she had left her backpack in a field at the high school, but she may also have been heading to soccer practice or even back home. Regardless of where Stephanie was going, she never arrived. When Sandy did not see Stephanie back home by curfew, she became worried. She called Stephanie's grandmother and other family and friends, but no one had seen or heard from her. She asked some neighborhood boys that were playing outside if they had seen anything, but they hadn't. There were no signs of Stephanie.
At 8:15 p.m., Stephanie's mother reported her missing, and a search was initiated that night. Law enforcement searched for her until shortly after midnight, and then returned early the next morning to continue. They were able to cover about 7,000 miles and 2 counties with the help of about 300 searchers, 2 planes, the FBI, Idaho State Police, boat crews, fishing game, tracking dogs, and investigators. Unfortunately, all came up to a dead end. Even search dogs lost their scent a few yards after exiting the bowling alley. There were no real leads, but there were many tips coming in. A witness reported seeing a yellow pickup truck with a red stripe parked at the high school around the time of her disappearance. No one recognized the truck, and it was concerning how close it was parked to the elementary school and the high school where kids usually go to play. When police went to check if the car was still there, it was not, and the lead seemed to be dead for the time being. On October 15th, police questioned the children at the bowling alley with Stephanie the night of her disappearance to see if they could recall anything out of the ordinary. They mentioned seeing a man that was strange and watching them. He was described as being about 5'10", 175 pounds, and around 37 years old. A sketch was made of the individual, but it hasn't been able to bring in any tips about his identity. On the same day they questioned the kids, another tip came in about a blue van that had been located on the shoulder of the same road that Stephanie went missing from, and it was parked only about half a mile from the bowling alley. It was there the same day as her disappearance, but it has not been able to be identified or connected to anybody. Another interesting tip mentioned seeing 2 men fighting near a convenience store, but that lead also ran dead.
Stephanie's case was featured on America's Most Wanted, Front Page, and on CNN. About a year after her disappearance, Ben and Sandy got a divorce. Sandy moved to Reno and left the girls with Ben in Idaho. In 1992, 2 years after Stephanie went missing, the state attorney told the family there wasn't any proof that a crime had occurred, basically telling them that Stephanie probably just walked away, which is a little bit absurd. She was 9. Local police, however, are still investigating this as a stranger abduction. They've had 5 to 10 persons of interest and believe that Stephanie was taken against her will by someone unknown to her. Stephanie had no history of running away and had not taken any belongings or anything like that. Even if she had run away, she's 9, so she's still in danger and still needs to be found, so dismissing it in any way is kind of horrible. In 1997, police looked at a man named Kenneth Glenn Hescock. They looked at him not only for Stephanie Crane's disappearance, but also for the disappearance of Amber Hoops. Amber went missing from her home in September of 2001 when she was 20 years old. Kenneth knew the Hoops family, so that's why he was considered a suspect for that. He also owned a yellow pickup truck, which some of the witnesses had described as seeing the night that Stephanie vanished. Investigators were not able to locate this vehicle. Kenneth was even in Chalice the day of the disappearance. He was on a hunting trip, and this was confirmed by documentation from the game warden showing that he had killed a sheep. Kenneth had a conviction of poaching in Idaho, but he had racked up felonies in other states as well, including illegal hunting and child pornography. Police searched his home but found nothing, and the lead went cold.
In 2009, a lead came in from an inmate in Napa, Idaho. The inmate said that a female friend of his rented a room at an apartment in 1993. She remembered hearing a young girl screaming from the basement, and the man in the apartment told her to never go down inside of the basement. This concerned her greatly, definitely since she had already considered the man who resided in her apartment to be suspicious. She had found women's underwear in his room previously, and it seemed out of place. One day, she asked the man about the girl, and he said he was punishing his daughter for trying to run away. She was very unsettled by this and took her kids and ran. Police took the information and searched through the guy's criminal history and were able to uncover that he had been charged and convicted with sexual abuse in the 3rd degree, but had never served any time because he had taken a plea deal. They decided to bring the man in for a polygraph, and he failed it. When they told him about the results, he got really angry, and the police ended up getting a search warrant for the guy's old apartment. They were able to collect blood samples and hair fibers. The bloodstains were not confirmed to be animal or human, but the hair was confirmed to be human hair. It was not possible at the time to test it for DNA since the follicle was not present, but the police still pursued this as a lead. They attempted to place him in Chalice the night of the incident and even showed him in a photo line to the employee who was working that fateful night at the bowling alley. Even though it was 7 years after the incident, she was able to point him out as appearing familiar. However, she was unsure if he was there that night. Since there was a lack of evidence, they did not arrest him, meaning we do not know the identity of this man.
In 2002, Kenneth Hescock came front and center to the investigation again. On June 5th, 2002, Kenneth kidnapped a 14-year-old girl outside her home and took her back to his house. He chained her to the bed and left for a while, and the girl was super brave and smart and took this opportunity to use a fire extinguisher to hit the lock until it broke. She fled and told authorities what happened. They immediately went to arrest Kenneth, and a 40-mile chase ensued. After a dead end stopped the chase, Kenneth pulled a gun and shot at officers, killing a police dog and injuring an officer. When he saw that there was no way he would be able to escape the situation, he turned the gun on himself and pulled the trigger. With no physical evidence and without a confession, police couldn't conclusively link Kenneth to Stephanie Crane, but personally, I think this is still a pretty viable option. In December of 2006, a man committed suicide. He left a note detailing his reasons for this. He said that he had information from a friend about the abduction, rape, and murder of a young girl in Chalice. Police contacted the friend, but he passed a polygraph and nothing was found when his property was searched. Nothing else really came of this. In June of 2016, it was said that new information has come up in the case, but it has not been released to the public yet. Stephanie's case was featured on Dateline's Cold Case Spotlight, and in 2018, her story was told on the ID channel show Disappeared. The case left a lasting effect on the community of Chalice and Stephanie's family. Sandy Crane passed away in 1997, and Ben passed away in 2012 on the anniversary of his daughter going missing. Stephanie Crane was 9 years old at the time of her disappearance. She was 4'2" and 85 pounds. She had thick, curly brown hair and blue eyes. She's described as having a cowlick on the right side of her hairline and a scar near her right eye. She had freckles and a gap between her front teeth. She was last seen wearing a maroon and white striped hooded sweatshirt with gimme on the front and maroon sweatpants and maroon and white shoes. There's a $50,000 reward out for information leading to Stephanie being found. If you have any information on this case, call the Custer County Sheriff's Office or the Custer County Sheriff's Tip Line or the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. And again, we'll have all those numbers on our website, so you can go check that out if you have any information.
That kind of wraps up our episode on Teekah Lewis and Stephanie Crane. If you have any other information about this episode or the cases, please send us a message, shout out to us, and let us know what you think. Don't forget to subscribe and follow all of our social media. We have a Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Don't be afraid to reach out to us over those platforms as well. And we hope to catch you guys next time.
Thanks for jumping into the abyss with us.